In the last few episodes, we've been taking a close look to some historic Fender amplifiers from the Tweed era of the 1950s and the Brownface period of the early 60s. I'm now pleased to show you another incredibly cool piece of gear, an original vintage Fender Vibroverb from 1965, the most sought after and valuable gem from the Blackface era of the mid-1960s. As always, we'll start from the beginning and look at a comprehensive overview of this cherished model from its introduction in 1963. I'm including information that you won't easily find elsewhere. As we've seen in BTR number 39 and BTR number 44, in January 1961 Hammond created the Type 4 spring reverb pan. The reverb was ready to be integrated as an onboard effect into guitar amplifiers. At the Summer NAMM show of 1961, Ampeg presented the Reverb Rocket, the first guitar amplifier to integrate reverb effect. Other companies followed close behind. By fall 1961, Gibson, Magnatune, Danelectro and Premier all introduced reverb as a built-in feature of their guitar amplifiers. They were soon joined by Epiphone, Supro, Harmony, Kay, Rickenbacker, National and Guild. Surprisingly, the Fender didn't jump on that train. Fender chose instead to introduce the 6G15 standalone reverb unit. According to the Fender paperwork of the time, it could be also used for accordion, microphone, and if you were not too picky about impedance, even with phonograph and tape-recorded program material. On the other hand, many guitar players could consider the standalone reverb a pricey and bulky solution. It forced you to drag a second separate unit along with the amplifiers, while other companies offered reverb as a convenient and cheap built-in feature of handy combo amplifiers. In February 1963, it was finally time to fill this gap with the competitors. Fender's answer was the 2x10 6G16 Vibroverb with Brownface covering, their first model of amplifier with built-in reverb. This model was essentially a combo version of the piggyback 2x10 Tremolax 6G9B, with addition of a reverb circuit. In fact, the blonde 6G9B Tremolax and the brown Vibroverb are electronically identical, except for the reverb, and shared nearly identical control panel layouts. The 6G11 Vibrolax was another close relative. More similar to the earlier Tremolax 6G9A, it had an 8-ohm output transformer to match the impedance of its single-speaker cabinet. In summer 1963, a wind of innovation blew through the Fender amp line. The look was revamped. The new outfit consisted in black Tollets covering and black control panel, leading to the nickname of Blackface amplifiers. Many models were fitted with integrated reverb, so the Vibroverb seemed to no longer serve its purpose and was temporarily discontinued. In September 1963, another model was converted to Blackface version, the Pro Amp, with single 15-inch speaker. It did not include reverb. By the end of 1963, its counterpart with reverb was ready to hit the market. Confusingly, it was not presented with the name Pro Reverb. Fender chose instead to revive the Vibroverb name. In essence, the Black Vibroverb is not the same amplifier of its predecessor in Brownface. It rather is a Black Pro amp with a reverb circuit. The Blackface Vibroverb is based on two 6L6 power tubes, delivering about 40 watts of power. It was constructed with typical Blackface circuits AA763 and AB763. The bias modulating tremolo of the Tweed-era amplifiers was replaced with an optical coupler tremolo effect. We will deal in depth with this very interesting topic in the next BTR episode. Like the Pro amp, the 64 Vibroverb came with a single 15-inch speaker, either a Big Jensen C15N with ceramic magnet or a huge JBL D130F with alnico magnet and aluminum dust cap. Given the overlap or redundancy of Vibroverb and Pro amp models, it's no wonder that as soon as CBS took possession of the Fender company in January 1965, they wanted to bring some order into the production. Reasonably, they aimed to a more streamlined catalog that would facilitate the work of the sales department and make things more clear for customers. The Black Pro amp and Vibroverb both had short lives. They were discontinued just after the takeover of the CBS management. By summer 1965, a new amp model with straightforward Pro Reverb name took the place of both Pro amp and Vibroverb. Due to the poor commercial success of the 1x15 combos, the Pro Reverb came in a more conventional 2x12 speakers complement. The guitar combos with bold 1x15 cabinet configuration disappeared from the Fender catalog for years. The original vintage Blackface Vibroverb I have here has an adventurous past. I really have to thank its latest owner, my dear guitar friend Enrico Tozzini. He allowed me to intercept it just before it flew to a new home in Germany. This amplifier in the early 1990s was acquired by my late friend and mentor Gianni Bucci from its original owner. This guy had purchased the Vibroverb along with a good companion piece, a 1964 Stratocaster. The guitar took a different route. It was acquired by my friend Giacomo Bagorda. Now, it's interesting to note that the first owner bought Stratocaster and Vibroverb new in 1965 from a historic shop here in Bari, my town. While the tube chart shows the dating code NH, which points to August 1964, the chassis and the speaker bear 1965 serial numbers. My guess is that this was one of the last Vibroverb amps to leave the Fender factory in 1965, while the model was being phased out. In fact, the Blackface Vibroverb was made only for about 1 year and a half. It was esteemed that less than 1,500 were produced. Also, it originally did not sell well compared to other models. Notoriously, Fender wanted to keep their production as consistent as possible for the demanding market of the United States, so usually tended to send leftover and odd products abroad or overseas. This is a typical example. My friend Gianni loved this Vibroverb above any other amp he had. He really was attached to it. About 20 years ago, I tried to acquire it from him. Here's a fun anecdote. At the time, I had a very rare and collectible 1955 Gibson Les Paul TV that I had bought from Gianni himself, and the nice 1969 Gibson Les Paul Deluxe with one-piece body. It had a repair, but still was all original and a valuable player. I said, "Gianni, would you trade your Vibroverb for my Deluxe?" I think it was a reasonable offer, while he seriously replied, "Are you joking? Not even if you give me back the Les Paul TV." That was a drastic reply, but Gianni knew guitar gear. The original Blackface Vibroverb has a sweet, warm tone, even when used with single-coil guitars and the bright switch on. The 15-inch speaker allows a solid bottom hand. Turning up the treble, you get sparkle at will. It also boasts impressive tone spread, which is great for stage monitoring and sound diffusion in the audience. Last year I had the chance to test this amplifier with both its original Jensen C15N speaker and the coveted JBL D130F vintage speaker. There are various opinions about the JBL speaker. I'm pretty sure that my friend Surfer Joe would stand for the JBL, while my friend Ignazio would most likely endorse the Jensen. I definitely prefer the smooth round tone of the beautiful Jensen, while I find the JBL more edgy with a bit of high-speaky treble spike. Besides personal tastes, I think that would be fair to say that the Jensen delivers more typical Blackface tone. It is also true that the JBL is much more sturdy and reliable than the Jensen. In fact, the C15N suffers when pushed full blast, to the point that sometimes it blows. So the Vibroverb sounds definitely great, as do other Fender Blackface models of the same period. So why it is considered the most desirable of the bunch? In BTR number 43, I mentioned that the Tremolax is considered a sleeper, since probably suffered the lack of strong testimonials. That is not the case of the Vibroverb. The fortunes of the Blackface Vibroverb dramatically changed when Stevie Ray Vaughan released his debut album Texas Flood. For that studio session, he used simultaneously two 1963 Blackface Vibroverb amps. Reportedly, they had by chance consecutive serial numbers, even if they were acquired from different sources. As you know, Stevie Ray had a huge influence on the music scene. The vintage Blackface Fender Vibroverb became popular and sought after. Due to the short period it was produced and its rarity, it soon became extremely collectible and valuable, ending up as the most expensive Blackface amp on the vintage market. In 1983, when I was 14, I was impressed by a great guitar solo on the track Criminal World on David Bowie's album Let's Dance. That guitar player was Stevie Ray Vaughan. Still unknown to the general public, I became aware of him the next year when I saw on TV the striking video of Couldn't Stand the Weather. Texas Flood was the first album that I bought on CD. In 1988 I was lucky to see him playing live in Italy with my current wife. He really was in top form. I'm one of those heads in the first row. Stevie Ray Vaughan's Vibroverbs were heavily modified by his GUITARTECH César Diaz. These mods were meant to make the Vibroverb a more powerful, performing and reliable amp for high stage volumes and heavy-duty operation, but Leo Fender never did anything randomly. In my experience, a Vibroverb with César Diaz mods loses some of the typical sweetness and warmth of the mid-powered amps. In fact, smaller amps boast smooth compression, soft sag on peaks and creamy overdrive, while larger amps have more power, definition, clean headroom and attack. An original Vibroverb has a magic balance between these two words. Fender reissued the 1963 6G16 Brown model in 1990, only for a few years, and released from 2003 to 2008 the Blackface Vibroverb 64 custom reissue, designed with César Diaz. My old-time pal Ambro Bascio kindly lent me his 63 Vibroverb, an early reissue from 1990. Several features differ from the original model of the 60s. For contemporary production needs, it has printed circuit board, hardwired reverb cables and solid-state rectifier. Also, it might benefit from a couple of more performing speakers. Of course, these differences affect the tone, but in the final analysis, it is a very good amp, made with attention to details. Also, it has a captivating look, quite faithful to the original. It boasts slash-sounding reverb and the awesome bias-modulating tremolo, which we will discuss in the next compelling episode. So be sure to subscribe now and click the bell so you won't miss what's next. Come to visit the Facebook group Bob Stone Review and follow our Instagram profile. Your participation with comments and feedback is the only fuel to keep the BTR channel going.